I'm a good-for-nothing person. Even though I work various jobs like at convenience stores, factory lines, and video rental shops, I often got fired due to my lack of manners. Here I am, a total loser and neat, even at 25 years old. Every day I just watch videos or play games on the smartphone that I got with my parents' money. There was no dream or hope for someone as worthless as me. Hey Mike, dinner's ready! The person who entered from the entrance, shouting that loudly, was my dad. Ever since my mom passed away and I was in elementary school, it had been just the two of us, father and son. He hasn't complained about me being this self-defeating. On the small table, my dad put what seemed like a fancy lunchbox. What is it? As I asked, my dad responded. One of the valued clients at the company gave it. Actually, it shouldn't have come to a janitor like me, but Miss Smith from the office secretly gave it to me. Okay. My dad is such a cheerful person, it seems like he makes friends quickly. That's why he often gets sweets and other stuff from that Miss Smith lady. He's the complete opposite of me, who is introverted and not good with social interactions. Maybe living with such a dad is why I can live without overthinking, even though I'm a 25-year-old single neat. I never really thought about finding a job or that my situation could become problematic. Then one day, my dad, who came from work earlier than usual, said something to me. Mike, I'll get you a job. I had never been told that before, no matter how much I'd been lazing around. I'd look for a part-time job when I felt like it and never asked for help. So I was quite surprised. Why? After all, even Dad, who doesn't seem to think anything of it, was wondering if it was time for me to work or something. With that thought, I asked him, Miss Smith wants to meet you. Huh? My dad, grinning as usual, said that, introducing me to a job just to meet the office lady. What's that about? I couldn't quite understand what that was thinking, but I felt a little motivated to work, so I decided to give it a try. Then, on my first day of work, I thought Dad would come with me, but it seemed I had to go alone. As I checked the map app and went to the company as instructed, I was surprised. It was a large company with a trendy exterior that looked like a shopping mall. I'm just cleaning this building, but coming here every day makes me feel a bit accomplished. With a pounding heart, I entered the office building, and when I walked into the cleaning department room, there were 3 middle-aged women and 1 older man. Could you be Mike? The joyful lady who spoke had a name tag that read Smith. Yes. As soon as I answered, the older lady and man surrounded me with excitement. What a handsome young man! Doesn't look like Jack at all. Really? I think the corner of his eyes resembles him. Jack must mean my dad, because his name is John. Even though it's our first meeting, they're so friendly to me. This alone shows how my dad is perceived by these people. Miss Smith, Miss Jackson, Miss Norris, Miss River. I've heard their names many times and I was to work with them. Being naturally rough and careless, the cleaning job was quite challenging for me. Trying not to be found out, but if I cut corners, they'd always find out. They looked after me more than I imagined. But I wonder why. It didn't feel bad at all. I felt a kind of warmth from all the janitors I worked with. So unusually for me, I didn't dislike going to work. And I didn't know this, but my dad had quit his job around the time I started. Given that he had been a janitor at that company since I was a kid, it was surprising that he quit now. It's still way too early for retirement, but Dad never told me why. He would just brush it off with his usual, well, it's fine. But honestly, I wasn't particularly interested in my dad either, so I never delved deeper. Perhaps ever since I started my janitorial job, my focus had shifted outward, and I didn't pay much attention to him. Yet, in my seemingly smooth transition into adult life, there was one thing that bothered me. It happened. Bam! While I was mopping the corridor floor. The full-time employees had just finished a meeting and were exiting the elevator. There were 3 of them, a man and 2 women, both around my age. Since I had just wiped the floor with a wet mop, I instinctively said, "The floor might be wet, please watch your step." Of course, I wasn't always this caring person. It was something I had learned from the older ladies I worked with. Noticing my caution, the female employee replied with a "thank you." Then the male employee glanced at me as I continued my work, giving a faint smirk. I thought, huh? Was I just laughed at? He quickly looked away and left, so I couldn't really ascertain his intentions. I felt a momentary irritation, but decided it might just be in my head and brushed it off. But his condescending attitude wasn't just my imagination. The next day, as I was cleaning a different area, that same male employee passed by. I noticed him, but pretended not to, looking down as I didn't want any interaction. Then, splash! For a moment, I didn't know what had happened. But when I looked, the bucket in front of me had been knocked over, soaking my pants and shoes. When I looked up in shock, the male employee was standing right in front of me. His foot was perfectly positioned over the bucket. Could it be? I thought, and it turned out it was exactly that. "I'm sorry I bumped into it," he said in a monotone voice and laughed at me condescendingly. I wanted to shout, "You did that on purpose, didn't you? Stop messing around." But just as I was about to speak up, the female employee who was with him rushed over asking, "Are you okay? Do you need some tissues?" And I hesitated. I'm fine." Caught off guard, that's all I could muster. Seeing this, the male employee commented, "Jessica, janitors clean up as a part of their job. You don't need to help him." The woman he called Jessica replied, But she probably hadn't realized that the male employee did it on purpose. But she seems like the type who can't just stand by and do nothing. They only know how to do that kind of work. It would be pitiful to take that away from them. Let's go." That line convinced me. He was picking a fight. I couldn't retort because of the female employee's intervention, but I thought I'd give him a piece of my mind the next time I saw him. That's what I was thinking. However, that day, I was to learn a shocking truth. When I came home, my dad, who always goes home first, was unusually not at home. As I wondered about it, I found a note on the fridge. It says, "I'm at the hospital. For details, ask Dr. Thompson." Cancer with only 6 months left? The doctor told me when I arrived at the hospital. According to doctors, the cancer was discovered about 6 months ago, around the time my dad got me the janitor job. Could it be that my dad, thinking he might die soon, wanted to pass on his job to me? I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that my always energetic father might be gone soon. When I entered the hospital room, my dad was lying there, connected to numerous tubes. I hadn't really taken a close look at his face regularly, but I thought, has Dad always looked this frail? Maybe signs of my dad's illness had been there much earlier. yet I had completely missed them. Even though I'm healthy, I've just lazed around the house, always causing him worry. I must have been the worst son. Could I have done something for my dad? As I thought about this unexpectedly, my father faintly opened his eyes. Unable to find words, I remained silent. "You look so down. That's why I didn't want to tell you," Dad said in his usual tone. All I could do was cry. "How's work? There are some interesting people, right?" I nodded vigorously as I wiped away my tears. "Miss Smith gives me candy almost every day, and Miss Johnson and Miss Williams take care of me like I'm their own child. Mr. Brown, the only male, is over 20 years older than me, but he's like a friend and is really fun. Those are the people I love. They're warm and always give me energy. They've encouraged me while raising you, my precious son Chris." My dad is always joking around. It makes it even sadder because he's being so serious. It seems like the end is really near. That's why, Mike, I gave it to you. So, even if I'm gone, you can still laugh and live happily. Cherish it." Saying that, my dad patted my back. Somehow, that touch felt weak and unforgettable. The next day, I went to work without being able to sort out my feelings. I assume Miss Smith and the others knew about my dad's situation. Even if I couldn't respond to their usual cheerful greetings, they didn't ask why. That warmth almost brought tears to my eyes again. But then, there was someone who ruthlessly added insult to injury. When I was cleaning the atrium, suddenly something fell from above. I looked up and saw tissues, crumbled paper, empty lunch boxes, broken chopsticks, and shredded flyers raining down. I realized a trash can had fallen when I saw it. "Oh, I dropped it. Sorry about that." There was a male employee on the floor above. He was laughing heartily, seeing me covered in trash from head to toe. Well, it suits low-life cleaners who can only do such jobs wearing trash like that. That man was dressed in a brand new suit without a single wrinkle and shiny shoes. In contrast, I was covered in trash, wearing a worn-out gray work uniform and dirty sneakers. Maybe being at the bottom in someone else's eyes isn't entirely wrong, but this place is special. A warm place my dad prepared for me. I can't forgive anyone who mocks it. This place is filled with wonderful people, the complete opposite of this twisted individual who harasses others. I wanted to argue, but if I, a mere janitor, lash out at this clearly elite employee here and now, it wouldn't end well. I can't let go of this place that my dad passed down to me. I felt frustrated and sad, wanting to fight back, but I had to desperately suppress my emotions. All I could do was clench my fists. "Can't argue because I'm too right, huh? You should be grateful since I gave you more cleaning work to do." All I could do was listen to his annoying laughter. Then, at that moment, "What on earth?" I heard a voice from behind and turned around. There stood a distinguished-looking, middle-aged man, obviously someone of high rank. From the way people around were addressing him, I realized he is the CEO. Thinking I would get scolded for littering the hall, even though I am a cleaner, I quickly said, "I'm sorry, I'll clean it up now," and hurriedly began picking up the trash. I couldn't get fired here with that sole thought in mind, but the CEO said something unexpected. "Why are you apologizing? He's the one who made the mess, isn't he?" Saying that, he called over the obnoxious employee. "Cleaners aren't here for you to mindlessly make a mess for them to clean up. Clean up your own mess." The employee now looking frustrated with a flushed face, tried to argue. But the CEO interrupted, saying, "Did I say something difficult? It's as simple as what even a kid can understand." The male employee hurriedly cleaned up the trash and left quickly. "Thank you." I never thought the CEO had been watching the whole time. "No, I want to thank you. You always keep the company clean and I truly appreciate it." "Not at all." The CEO was very gracious and gentlemanly as he politely thanked me. Then the CEO further inquired, "Are you Jack's son?" "Huh?" "Jack is the nickname that Chris mentioned before. It's my father's nickname." I was surprised that even the CEO would use that name. I was amazed at how sociable my dad was. Actually, Jack and I grew up together. I was able to establish this company with his support. What? I was really surprised by this unexpected revelation. I had never heard, let alone imagined, that my dad had been involved in setting up such a big company. But Jack is just like that, you know. He didn't want the hassle of running a business, so he chose to be a cleaner. Indeed, that sounded like my dad, and it was easy to picture him saying that. Jack has the talent for bringing people together. I've always admired him a lot. It felt strange to hear my dad praised in that way, but as his son, I felt proud. That's why I was looking forward to having you join us. At the same time, I felt more than ever that I had nothing to offer. I don't think I have any talent. I feel kind of guilty even hearing you say that. While laughing a bit, I made such self-deprecating remarks. But the CEO reassured me. "That's not true at all." Huh? I don't mean to brag, but I've been in this business for decades. I've seen many people, so I believe I have a good judgment of character. Just from the few minutes I've observed you, I can tell you're a young man with a sense of justice and a warm heart. Had anyone ever spoken to me like that before? Since I started this cleaning job introduced to me by my dad, I feel like many things have changed. I no longer dread going to work, and I've started to enjoy connecting with the outside world. Surrounded by kind-hearted people, I've become more dedicated to my job. I've learned to be patient for others and to consider their feelings. All of this was thanks to my dad. Thank you so much. From that day on, I stopped limiting myself. I wonder how much I tortured myself by thinking that I couldn't do it or that I didn't have any talent. 6 months later, my dad passed away. So many people came to his funeral that I realized how much he was loved. I might not be as sociable as my dad, but I always want to cherish the precious people around me. Now, as a cleaner, a job that my dad left behind for me, I spend every day with a smile. Thank you so much, Dad.